All right, hello and welcome back for another tutorial in Maya. Today we are going to take a look at the physical sun and sky system and creating some lighting that sort of matches what's going on outside. And we're going to be using the mental ray portal light, which will help give us this nice interior glow in the room and sort of help us match what's going on the exterior and bring that inside onto the interior with just the help of one light. Now, this is a real simple scene that I'm showing you here, which is just basically a cube. I knocked out some faces for a window, put a column in back here just to, throw a shadow over here, and a simple sphere with a I think that's an MIA chrome material. So anyway, what we're looking at is pretty simple, but really it's complex because this scene right here is giving me a ton of information. And we want to be aware of this information as we're working with this portal light in the physical sun and sky. And what's really great about this is you can see where the shadows are, you can see the light fall off, you can see the various colors of the lighting. Now I have the sun angle coming in from say over here, and all of that is reflected in this ball. So with a chrome material attached, I can actually see what's going on behind me in the scene. And that's important to know because sometimes you want to kind of be aware of what's going on behind you as well as what's going on in front, and that's what makes creating like a reference sphere like this so much really nice, because that gives us more information in one visual look. So with that in mind, I was in need of creating some good interior lighting, and the portal light seemed to be the best way to go, and I couldn't find that much information on it. So essentially what I'm trying to do is match a lighting scheme that kind of looks like this, and bring this exterior lighting into an interior in one of these buildings with the physical sun and sky system, and that way I don't have to do a whole bunch of other types of lighting, and this gives really great results. So that's what that's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just get rid of this guy down here. And my journey always kind of starts with Lester. I always go to Lester and check out new stuff, and he has all the tutorials. Great stuff, After Effects, Maya, Blender, you name it, green soda. So I checked out Lester, and he's good for my brain all the time. So bookmark him, go there, take a look. In this case, I searched Lester for some info on the portal light. Didn't really find anything, but I did run across, in this case, a guy by the name of Zeth Willie. And here's Zeth. Zeth is at Catbucks Productions, catbucks.com. You can find him over at willieworkblogspot.com. And he's a teacher of animation and rigging at New York University. And he does some really cool stuff. So you'll want to go and check out his reel. But you can see where, Zeth is, he's a pretty creative guy. Funny stuff. I think this is Zeth's portrait over here, self-portrait. I don't know, but I imagine that's probably what he looks like. And because he lives in New York, he probably wears a really fancy pair of shoes. Okay, so go check out Zeth, because Zeth has a great tutorial on Vimeo, over here on Vimeo, about the portal light, and that's where I kind of learned a bit more about it, and I just want to bring this back to you. But also, while you're checking out his blog over at WillieWork, he has lots of stuff on rigging and some other complex stuff, and does a great job on a tutorial. So really, go check out Zeth's stuff at WillieWork, willieworkblogspot.com. And he also has a really cool short on Amazon, and it's called The Needful Head. And he did the voiceovers, the animation, and rigging. A super job. This thing has won awards, and nice. It's really well done. So anyway, I downloaded that from Amazon.com. I think it cost me $1.99, and worth every minute of it, Zeth. So great job. Anyway, this is kind of cool because Zeth is using Amazon to sell his short. And, this is the way of the future for most content producers, and you should be mindful that this is sort of the process we'll all be going through someday. And I think it's great. It gives us hope for, independent creative content production. So go and download a little thing from Amazon, The Needful Head, and watch it. Okay? So anyway, Zeth sort of introduced me to this portal light, and he goes in fairly in-depth in this portal light. So you'll want to go and watch his tutorial as well, all right? Now, let's open up a project. I'm in Maya now, and I've already created a scene. I've created that box. I'm in X-ray mode right now, so I created the box, knocked out the windows. I put an area light in there. Let me get my outliner up here. Put in that area light right there. We got the cubes and the spheres inside of the room. And let's see, if I go over here, we'll just go back into X-ray. There's my area light, my sphere, my cube, and I created a camera back here. That's just a new camera, my camera 1, and I put a keyframe on it so that it's always going to stay in its position. So you might want to, put a camera on the inside that we're going to use in a lockdown position just to get started with this as we do our testing. And I'm going to show you how to set up this portal light. So pretty easy stuff, but there's a couple of different steps that we need to do. You're going to create an area light and put it right outside the window here. And we're going to do that, and we're going to turn this light off. So we want our scene to basically be starting out something like this. All right. I got a column here just to throw a shadow, and just a couple objects in the room as reference objects for, shadows and light and stuff. And so, that's essentially all we have going here. Now, when you put your area light in there, size it to the window and keep it on the outside just a little bit. I don't know, you can play around with it and see what it does in various positions later on, but right now we'll just sort of work with that. So as long as we're all on the same page, we should be getting pretty much the same results as we go along. And you'll notice that I have this set to 0 right now, my intensity light. You're going to want to do that as well. And once you get this scene set up, before we go anywhere, we'll adjust that. So, all right. With that being said, go ahead and create yourself this stuff. I'll put this video on pause for a second and create your stuff. Okay? Pause. All right. Now, we're going to get back into it. I'm going to select my camera. I think we'll just go into our panels and get that, we'll get that camera, my camera, okay? So you have your area light in here. Make sure you set your intensity down to 0, and let's do a quick render. And everything's at default right now. I'm in Mental Ray, just Mental Ray default. And let's do a render. Okay, you should get a black screen, and that's perfectly fine, because right now the only light in the scene is our area light, and it's overriding, our default light. You can also go in and turn the default light off, but anyway, because that's the only light, we don't have anything because it's turned all the way down. Now, if we go ahead and set this to a value of 1 and do a quick render, okay, let's do a quick, oh, I know why it's not doing it, because always switch your render in your render view. If you're not getting the results, you go down to render and go down to camera 1 and do that in your render view, and you should get something that looks like that. All right. Okay, so right now that's not what we want at all, but we can tell that our area light is working and it's coming into the room. So let's set that back down to 0, do another test render, and away it goes. All right, well, the next step we want to do is bring up our render settings. So go ahead and click on your render settings, and I'll bring mine up over here. And in the render settings, go over into your indirect lighting tab. There we go. And go to your physical sun and sky and hit create. Now, I get a little thing here because I have a Mel script installed, which gives me a choice of using the MIA exposure simple, which I like much better. I mean, the MIA photographic, which I like better. And then there's your simple exposure node. So for the default and everyone, let's just stay with the exposure simple. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK and create that. Now, what we'll want to do is just do another render by default right away, and let's see what we got. Make sure that physical sun and sky system is working. And as you can see, there it is. Now, what we're seeing is just basically spill off of the light coming in from the outdoors and coming on to the indoors. But really that's not kind of what this light would look like. I mean, we're going to expect that there's going to be a lot more light in here. And we're not getting it. And also the shadows are kind of funky, and it has kind of a rough feel. So we're going to refine that from here. But first, let's take a look at a couple of ways we could adjust this if we weren't adding anything else to there. You could, let's take our render view. I think I'll leave my render view right there. And we're going to come over here. You could up your multiplier in the Physical Sun Sky tab. If you come down into your multiplier, you could say maybe give this a value of 1.5 and see what happens with that. And yeah, it starts to add a bit more light, but now you're blowing out your sky and everything back here, and it just doesn't, it doesn't quite look right still. So I'm going to go ahead and just reset that to 1 and do a quick render, get back to where we were. And you can do some various things in here, but really not much control over that at all. You could come into your hypershade, and usually when we're working with this physical sun and sky system, you'll notice that you have your various nodes here. There's our physical sky, or our physical sun, excuse me. And most of these properties, the only two that you're probably going to be concerned with in here is your shadow softness and your samples. And we'll get into that later on after all is said and done. But remember, these are a couple of important properties right here that you want to be looking at. All right, so let's go over to the MIA Exposure Simple node right here, and you'll see that it's in your tab, Exposure Simple. And here's the pedestal and gain and whatnot. You could mess around with these a little bit, but really, they don't really help you out that much with lighting. And basically, this is a process that we have to attach a special light to because of final gathering. And final gathering is better explained by Zeth in his tutorial, because he really kind of gets into the nuts and bolts of it. But for the moment, just understand that final gathering is going to be, it's a light, it's light bouncing all over the place, and certain points that are being recorded and translated and blah blah. Okay, don't want to get into that at the moment. Let's just take a look at what else we can do. Well, let's try now that we have our area light in here to see what an area light would do to this scene. All right, so if you want to come over into your area light, I'm going to grab mine right there. And let's just come over here to my area light. There it is. And my intensity is at 0 right now. So I'm going to go ahead and up that to its basic intensity of 1 and just do a quick render and see what happens. All right, there it is. Well, that looks better. By adding an area light, this can work for certain situations. And what you're seeing here is just an area light coming through the window. And we do have that physical sun and sky light in the back. But our temperature isn't really being translated necessarily, and you'll see that better when we do another render we'll adjust something here. So that by default is showing me that, that can work. It looks okay. But let's come over here and actually activate our shadows. Come into shadows, you'll notice that we don't have depth map shadows on, and we don't have ray trace, but let's just enable ray tracing shadows and do a quick render, kind of see what happens there. All right. Well, you can see where your shadows are going to look a little scratchy and blotchy. I don't know what you're going to get necessarily, but we can tell that it's doing its job. This, technically I want to see a shadow being cast from this column into here, so obviously that area light's not going to do that for me, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, it's still not quite right, so let's do something else. Let's change the angle of the sun. And sometimes you'll need to come into your outliner and just grab your sun direction. For me, it's right there. I'm going to go ahead and just we'll twist it up like that. All right. Now let's take another render on this scene and see what happens. I should get some change in the coloration of the sky back here, which is fine. That's what I want. I am seeing some distinct shadows. I'm seeing this new shadow. But really this is more gray. This is the default Lamberts that are attached, and it is gray. It is what I expect to see, but I would expect that, some coloration changes are happening down here because that is a result of the direct light. But it technically isn't affecting the whole scene. So we want to maybe switch that up a little bit. And let's go, because we can mess with our intensity here. You could change your intensity levels, but for the moment, let's just leave that at 1. And let's come down into our mental ray settings right here. And we're going to look for our mental ray. Let's see here. What am I doing? We're gonna activate. Oh, I'm on the sun shape. You want to switch over. Let's go back. I want to switch back to your area light, okay? Because we're going to make the first change on the area light. And what we're looking for in the area light is our mental ray section right here. And open up that, and what we want to do is we want to use this light shape, or this light, as a mental ray area light. So I'll go ahead and just check that. And I'm going to do another quick render just to see what's happening here. All right. Okay, well, by switching that over into a mental ray area light, it's looking better. And, that's to be expected because mental ray is great. Okay, now that is just at default. And, I'm seeing things kind of the way I want to see them. That's all fine and everything. But really this light color is still, it's still white. Now, we can go up and adjust our area light. We can't actually adjust it now from here. Let's see. I'm going to put that to like 0.5. See what happens. You see, not much of a change. And I'm going to take that to like 4. All right, let's see what happens here. All right, so there you go. You can start controlling your intensity from your light here as a mental ray light. But really, we're going to need to add some decay to this light, because when this light comes into this room, it's naturally going to fall off from the front to the back. So normally we wouldn't, use a light with no decay in this case. And quadratic might be the best choice because it's just sort of an exponential fall off of the light as it goes through the room. So I'm going to go ahead and add that quadratic decay, and we're going to do another render. All right. And you can see by adding the decay, it is starting to have some different properties that we need to be aware of. But that intensity is not right. It's not looking right overall for the room. And so let's just up that to, say, maybe 10. All right. Okay, it still isn't doing much. So let's try upping this to, like, say, 100. All right. And you get the idea. Because we have some decay introduced to that light, well, now it's now it's getting a little harder to set. I'm going to take that up to 1,000. It's sort of like doing all these adjustments and not knowing exactly where to go with it. And it'd be better to have this set up so that we don't even really have to think about it. That light would just be, a natural fall off on there. Okay, so this is still coming out great. I'm going to do a little bit more of an extreme here. And let's see. In this case, let's come into our outliner and bring up that physical sun sky. Actually, we're going to go into the hyper shade, and let's grab our physical sky. And let's change this value a little bit right now, just to see what's going to happen to the red-blue shift. Let's switch that up for experimentation purposes to, say, maybe like 400. Yeah, let's do 400. All right, and I'm going to move this stuff out of the way and do another render. Okay, so now by switching up that value to 400 on our red-blue shift, I've warmed up the lighting value, and now you can see where it is, and it's having an effect where it spills through the room, but it isn't translating to our other properties in the room. And that's what we got to be concerned about here, because color temperature is going to affect everything. So, okay, with that in mind, let's try and look at how we can change this area light up now in order to reflect the color that's going on outside. And that's where we're going to attach a portal light. All right. So if you come over into your area light right there, grab your area light, and in the properties section down here at the bottom, you're going to have, let's see here, where am I at? Oh, right here under our custom shaders. Go to custom shaders, and we're going to add a shader. We're going to add that portal light in this spot right here. So we're going to say, okay, great, pick the tab right here. That'll bring up your outliner, your render node, and we're going to come down in here to mental ray lights, and we're going to click on this portal light. All right, so now I've just attached that portal light to this scene, and I'm going to do another render right now. We're going to just see what we get by default. All right, well, there it is. Okay, so by adding that portal light, you'll notice that you start to get this warm glow of whatever's in that portal light. Or that portal light is just basically acting like a big glass magnifier, and it's taking whatever's going on out here and throwing it into the inside of this box or your interior, which is really cool. Now I'm going to go back to the area light for a moment just by choosing it, and I'm going to switch this area light back up to its the color value here. Okay, where am I at? Well, maybe not. Area light, and no, we're going to actually go to our physical sky, because that's where I made the change in the red-blue shift. So you have to remember now, we got two things going on. We have the outer sky that's controlled with your physical sky properties, and then we have that portal light now, which is controlling properties for in here. So we want to be working with the physical sky, set this blue shift back to, we'll set everything back to 0, and take a quick render, and it should look just kind of like it does outside. All right, so you get the idea. By working with this portal light, it's basically just reflecting everything in here the way it should look. Now we have to make some other adjustments to this, so let's take a look at that portal light node for a second. I'm going to bring that over here, and let's take a look at our portal. You can see here in the outliner there that technically this portal light, well, technically this should be attached to our, I'm going to come in here to my lighting section, and I'm going to choose my area light, and in the area light I'm just going to graph that. Let's see, let's just look at its input output connections. Yeah, okay, so that's what it should look like. You know, if you're in your light tabs up here, area light, once we attach that portal light, it's now part of that area light. All right, so I'm going to click on this node for a second, and you'll notice that this portal light has a multiplier. So I'm going to bring the render view back over, and we're going to mess around with this multiplier here a little bit. It's at 1 right now. Let's just do a value of 2, take a look, see what happens. All right, there you go. Let's bring this multiplier up to say like 10. We'll just do an extreme. Kind of see what happens with that. All right, it's getting lighter. Let's take this up to say maybe 50 and see what happens. All right, so you get the idea. Light's coming in, and you know, we're getting kind of what we expect we should be seeing. Now the shadows and everything we're going to start refining here with some settings in Mental Ray. So let's fine tune some of this stuff next, or take a look at how to control that. But real quick, like, I'm going to switch back this intensity multiplier to something more like 20, and let's see what I get. All right, I may just want to stay with that for the moment, and I'm going to click on my area light shape. I'm going to come up here to the top, And you'll notice that this intensity is set at 1,000 right now. Well, even if this was set at 1, we're going to get the same thing that we had before, because we are now using this portal light as our main, volume control, so to speak. All right, so there you go. Really cool stuff. You could switch up the color. Well, actually, you can't switch up the color. Sometimes when you're trying to match an interior and you're just using a regular area light, you can sometimes change the color a little bit to match the outside, but this is a much better way to go. All right. So let's take a look at mental ray settings for a minute here and see what's happening with our physical sun and sky indirect lighting system. Global illumination is off right now because we're not really using it. And when we activated the physical sun and sky, final gathering is now here. And essentially you want to keep these settings as low as possible to fit your scene. And so you might want to look and see what these little reminders tell you, that they're very expensive when you start upping these values. And in this case, going up is not such a good idea. In terms of point interpolation right here, you'll notice where this little thing says the number of final gather points to be considered for interpolation. The higher values smooth the final gathering result at little cost. Okay, well, you might think, well, I'll just give it a point interpolation of 1600 or something. I'll just crank that value up. Well, I did a little chart and a little test on point interpolation that's kind of interesting. You'll notice that here's the default value of 10. And as you start increasing your point interpolation, it starts to do funny things. And this is sort of just illustrating at an extreme what point interpolation does. Is it's throwing light rays around in here and tracing the values of how far they should go and the fall off and everything else. But it also starts to extremely affect your scene if you add too many. So in this case, final gather point interpolation, less is not always more or better. So just keep that in mind. All right. So there you go. Now let's take a look at our other render settings in quality over here, for example. You'll notice in here I pretty much am just a default. There's not much happening in here, so we want to kind of go and start working on our shadows. Well, let's take a look at our features first. We do have ray tracing is enabled and final gathering, and we could start working with ambient and occlusion and stuff, but for the moment let's just leave it as it is, and let's go back to our light setting over here. And yeah, I'm sorry this tutorial is going on, but we need to get this covered. So let's look at our shadows first, and we're using ray trace shadows. I have one ray going on there, which isn't that much. So I'm going to just pump the rays up to 40 for a second and do a quick render. All right. And it starts to smooth it out a little bit, but let's take the ray depth limit up a little bit. Let's take it up to maybe like 6 and see if that increases our time very much. All right. It'll get better. You can use some higher samples. It is going to take a hit rendering wise. I'm going to set the samples up to like say 64, and I'm going to set my sample limit here to like say maybe 4 and 4 over here, and just do a test. And start low and work yourself up to higher values, and you'll find something that's kind of right for what you're up to. Okay, well that's looking better in the shadows and everything right away. It's adding a little bit more to my render time, but no big deal in this point anyway. So now let's take a look at something really cool about these shadows once we get some shadow stuff going. If you choose let's see, I'm going to bring this window over here, and we're going to go back in our utilities, and we want to choose this physical sun and get back to what I was showing you in the beginning, and that is your samples and your softness. Now overall, look at our shadows. They're real clean and crisp. Well, if I take this shadow softness and raise it to like say 8, and I'll just leave the samples at 8 right there. Let's take another look at what happens to those shadows as we start messing with the softness values. Okay, you can see where it's starting to soften those shadows up, and they're getting kind of messy. So let's take our shadows up even more. I'm going to go to say like 20 and do another quick render. And on the first pass of the render, you'll just sort of see what's going on. Second pass, now we have a lot more shadow softness going on in there. So, you could leave it there if you want, and then go and tweak out all of your settings in that area light. Underneath your shadows, we could raise the shadow raise here to like 100 or whatever. So you get the idea. Just fine tune it to your taste. Okay, so there it is. Now Seth goes into adding a black body to a portal light in his tutorial, which is really cool, especially if you're going to use the portal light in kind of like a for still lifes on a table or something, and really good info in there. So there you go. Let's see, did I forget anything? Oh yeah, an interesting thing to do with the scene once you're at this point is to maybe go, I'm going to come in here to my perspective view and knock out a couple of walls back here. Let's see, I'm going to go in here, I'll just right mouse click, go to face mode, and say maybe take out a section. I'm just going to shift select all this stuff. Well, let's see, why is it not letting me do that? Here we go. Okay, I'm going to just try and take out a bunch of walls here, and we're going to add a window to the back side, because that'll also let light in on this physical sun and sky system. And in this case, I want to take a look around and make sure I didn't choose anything I didn't want to. Great. I'm going to delete those faces. I'm going to go back to my other camera, camera 1, and I'm going to take another render. And in this new render, I'm going to save this one. And in the new one, let's see what happened by knocking out some walls in the back. Okay, well, not a noticeable difference really, but let's see, let's take a look at, I'm not seeing a noticeable difference. Well, anyway, the point is that be aware that you can knock out other walls and have the light from your physical light, sunlight, come in, and there you go. So I think that's it. So I hope you learned something. Go out, make some portal lights, do some interior scenes, and get busy. Read a book, and of course be a good person, and donate to the Red Cross right now if you can. That would be an awesome thing to do, because my sympathies go out to my Japanese subscribers and to all those who are affected by the tragedy in Japan. And my heart and my thoughts are with you. Yeah, so there you go. All right, have a great one, and we'll see you back for the next tutorial.